Hey guys, what's going on? It's Dan, and I am joined again by Ryan. How are you doing, Ryan?
Doing good.
All right, and this week, instead of our normal weekly recap, we are going to be going into PRs, kinda, sorta, and then also discussing what different playoff paths look like for everyone in the red division. So, unless you have anything to add, we can just go ahead and jump right on in.
Yeah, we say PRs kind of because this is just going straight differential order. We're not going to be talking super in depth about PR stuff. We just wanted to have some kind of nice notes for people to leave over the course of their season. Just some things that we kind of noticed for this little chunk since the last PR video, but these are not going to be nearly as in depth as the other PRs that we've done. This is more so that you know what matches are important, and so that you can kind of see your own playoffs math, and so that you can make sure that you have assurance as to what you need to do to make whatever spot you need to make. So,
Well said. But with that being said, speaking of important matches, we're going to start talking about Johnny, who is currently in 8th place in the red division at 2-5 with a negative 12 differential. But he still has a playoff path. Winning this week is very important because he is playing the number 7 seed, which is you right now, and he needs to have a stronger differential than a 3 and 4 team that loses. Because this week, 2 of the 3 and 4 teams are playing against each other, and one of them is playing a 4 and 3 team, so at least one and maybe two of them are guaranteed to lose, which would tie the winner of your game with Johnny with at least two other people at 5 losses. So there's a lot of wiggle room that could go around here, but a good differential and a good win this week are musts for him. And then, because it's going to be so close, he needs to have a win with a better differential next week than the similar coaches to him if he gets to that point after this week. So, while there is a very, very small chance he could actually make it with 2 losses, or with 1 loss and a win, I did figure that out. If the loss is very small, the win is huge, and results break perfectly. Basically, Johnny's in a needs to win 2 in a row shot to make it. But the most important result for him to try and make it in, which is we're going to have the most desired outside result for games, so you have a rooting interest outside, is he wants me to beat Raz, because Raz is that other 3 and 4 team. So there's a greater potential number of teams sitting at X5 after this week. But with that math being said, why don't you go through your notes for Johnny this season?
yeah, these PR notes are just kind of light. We sort of, by the way, normally we ask for what mon you want to represent your team and stuff. For this, we just kind of put down some PR mons that we liked that you've been using, things that we saw that were cool. Johnny always brings surprising sets. I actually really think that despite being 2 and 5, Johnny has made some really excellent calls consistently on what his opposing person will do in prep. And I think he's actually got a little bit of late season momentum. His win on Jess was really good. And it feels like he's kind of evolving into the team. Maybe a little late, but to me, his general strategy and flowchart has improved from the beginning of the season, where it felt like things were kind of getting thrown against a wall. I feel like he's kind of getting a better feel for how this team's supposed to operate, and I think his transactions are definitely helping with that.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with all of those. He's made a lot of really good calls, and then I feel like a lot of his prep has also improved throughout the season, especially with speed tiers.
Yeah.
But
I think the late season momentum, though, is a big thing. I think that there
yes,
is... the thing is, no one in red is really out of contention at the moment,
that is true.
and even though Johnny is 8th, he's definitely not out of contention.
Yes, 2nd through 8ths are separated by 2 games.
Uh,
But moving on to the person in 7th is you, Ryan.
Me.
So
Hello.
I'll go through everything on your slide just to make it really quick, so you're not patting yourself on the back. But
Well, I'm in 7th. I'm not really going to be doing a lot of padding.
yeah, you have to win this week against Johnny. You versus Johnny, huge for both of you. Loser is effectively eliminated.
Mhm.
And again, you need to have a stronger differential than the 3 and 4 team, but because your differential is better than Johnny's right now, you only need to make up 5 instead of 8 this week, and then have as good or better result as the coaches, as those tied coaches next week to have your shot. Again, your most desired outside result is me beating Raz to move another team to X5 that you could potentially tie with after this week. And this season, your play with the team is continuing to evolve to match your style. Early game, the team and the way you were trying to play the team were fighting against each other instead of working well. Azumarill and Lurantis, you've really overperformed with both of them throughout the season, I think, which is why Azurantis is your Pokemon that was selected as your icon mascot this season. And then I think your content is actually, it's something that's a bit underrated, but it has really improved this season in terms of continuing to give consistent commentary instead of the occasional yeah, so that's a thing that like last season that happened quite frequently, and this season it's happened a lot less frequently. I think your commentary has definitely improved. But do you have anything to say about your season so far?
Not particularly. Mostly just I'm in a very similar boat to Johnny, more or less. So good luck to him this week. We'll see who manages to at least fight for a wild card.
Yeah, well, speaking of matches that matter, which is, spoiler, every match in the Red Division this week.
Yes, yeah.
Noah, who is in 6th at 3-4, who is playing Jess, who is in 4th at 3-4. Yeah, this is part of the 3-4 doubleheader. So, for Noah to make it, what he needs to do is finish with a better result than Raz over the last 2 weeks, winning at least once. So if he finishes 1-1, but his differential is better than Raz's differential, and Raz also finishes 1-1, Noah should have an inside path. He could get caught from behind by either you or Johnny, but if he can keep the differential up and he's able to finish better than Raz, he's got a shot to make top 3. So he's got a shot to make top 3. He's got to win out and hope that me or Charles lose a match at some point, and then differential plays in his favor. But a loss this week for him in particular is going to be really tough to come back from, because he is playing another 3-4 team, and that would put even more distance into him, into the top 5 for him. But his most desired outside result this week, I could have said me versus Raz again, because that's pretty close for him, but it's actually Dina versus Charles, because if Dina beats Charles, and he beats Jess this week, he has a chance to actually jump Charles and move into a top 3 spot, which would give him basically the bye without having to play the wild card. But why don't you tell me about the PR notes?
Yeah, so we haven't seen all of Noah's games, and that kind of made made some PR a little weird. The prep, I think, has generally steadily improved week to week this season. His initial prep was actually super solid, especially coming off of his past MDL season. I think that, generally speaking, the prep has improved. I also think he's improved his team variety, at least in team preview from the prior season. He's bringing his whole team, which was something that really kind of bit him his other MDL season. He's actually bringing all his mons, at least to team preview. He is willing to bring some more unconventional stuff. Now, I will say, with this note, of the games I've seen, he does mostly stick to his core mons. And his match against Johnny in particular, I felt like he should have been bringing some of those additional things he had in preview. But in general, those things are all pretty vastly improved. He's having a solid season. I'm interested to see how the rest of it plays out for him.
All right, and then we can move on to our team in 5th, who is Raz, who's also 3-4, -4, exactly the same score as Noah. So, a win this week will nearly lock at least a wild card for him. So this is a huge week for Raz. He's playing me, and I'm at 4-3. So a win with a greater than +2 differential, and he's pushing for a top 3 spot. But if he loses this week, he needs to lose close enough that you or Johnny can't catch him in differential, because the winner of your game, if he loses, will have the same record as him. To hope to make top 3, he needs to win out and hope that Charles takes a loss. If he wins out, that means I take a loss already, so he just needs to hope Charles takes a loss, and that he finishes with a better differential than the Just Noah winner. So again, his most desired result is Dina beating Charles for that shot at the top 3, or keeping an extra person within one game of him going into the last week if he loses as well. So Raz has a couple different paths, but this is a really big week for him against me. But why don't you tell me about his PR notes?
Yeah, just in general, massive improvement in play, even just over the course of this season, but just historically speaking, I think this is Raz's best played season of draft I've seen from him, by a pretty substantial margin. The Torn usage I've actually been a pretty big fan of. I specifically wanted to call that out. Torn is a mon that has a bit of a 4 move slot syndrome, and it feels like Raz is consistently clicking all 4 moves on it, whatever he's bringing, and they're always doing work. That is surprisingly difficult to do with a mon like Torn. It can be a little tricky to know which moves to bring to each matchup and be able to make them work the way he has, and he's done a really nice job of that. I do have a note for kind of as his season is progressing, that you don't need to feel as locked to the core mons on the team. Some variant of like Torn, Metagross, Marowak, and then usually your Trick Room setter, so Behem, Trevenant, comes most of the time. You do have some other cool options on your team that you could definitely, as the season progresses, even though you run pretty great set variety, I see different sets on your mons week to week. As the season progresses, though, especially in a league like MDL, you are going to run into people starting to prepare themselves for your core a little bit harder, even if that core is very versatile. So definitely, if you feel like something isn't lining up or something isn't working, maybe try something you haven't worked with as much before. That might help you out. Picked Marowak as the mon. I haven't really talked about the mons that we picked. What meant to do that? Roserade for Johnny was because he had the really cool Roserade Max game, and I thought that was sick. Let's see. Noah Alcremie. You talked about mine. Noah Alcremie. He's just had the best use of Alcremie I've basically ever seen. I've been pretty impressed by it. As for Raz, I think he has gotten more out of that Marowak than almost anybody I've seen use it, and that's a really good mon, but he's been absolutely killing it with it and getting a ton of work out of it, so nice job to him on that.
Yeah, I think he's definitely been playing very well this season and should be happy with the way he's been playing, and I think he's got a real shot to be a threat in the playoffs. But up next, we have Jess, who's in 4th at 3-4 -1, and she is playing Noah this week. So a win this week will nearly lock at least the wild card for her, but if she loses, she can't let you or Johnny catch in differential. Again, these are pretty consistent themes here. She has a chance to make top 3 if she wins out and hope that either Charles or I lose, and she runs up some differential. But regardless of the result this week, a big win next week can get her to at least wild card. So she's at the point with her differential that even if she loses 0-8 this week, she'll still have a shot to get to wildcard with a good result next week. And for Jess, her most desired outside result is actually Gumi beating me. Because for me versus Raz, it could go either way. That if she loses, she wants me to beat Raz. If she wins, she wants Raz to beat me. But no matter what happens, she wants Gumi to beat me, because that gives her best shot of passing me to move into a top 3 position. But what do you think about her season so far?
Jess's prep has remained on point as always. Jess is just so good at prep, and it's remained that way. I picked Mew as the mon, actually specifically for her prep with Mew. To me, has been very solid every week. When you have a mon that gets every move in the game, I feel like having that solid prep really helps. I do think there's a little bit of some momentum loss for the latter half of this season. Just because I think she's taken a few more losses. So it's just something to be aware of, that I definitely think Jess can get that momentum back. I think her and Noah's going to be a pretty key game this week. But just wanted to note that there is a little bit of momentum loss. However, I am assuaged because I think her team transactions have been absolutely fantastic. And I do think that those are going to play into gaining that momentum back for this last little bit of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. But moving on to 3rd team, I'll talk about my math, and then you can talk about the PR notes.
Yeah, so fuck Sableye. I'm a big fan of the use of the Zamazenta this entire season. I think the only person who's really been able to get you on it was Charles. Everyone else has had a really hard time handling the Zamazenta in the back. It's really strong. Running AV into me was a pretty stellar call, because otherwise I had pretty consistent KOs on it, actually. And I think that you're really proving that that thing absolutely was a solid pick. I've been very convinced on it, and I think your mid to late season performance has been a lot stronger than your early season performance. I think that you are now at a point where it feels like momentum is more so leaning your way than going against your way. So I will let you talk about your own math.
Yeah, so the math for me is pretty easy. Win this week, I lock postseason. It's as simple as that, and if I win twice, I get a top 3 spot. I can still make the wild card if I lose twice, if I keep the losses close, depending on how differential comes. And I do have an outside shot at the number 1 overall seed if Dina loses out. Which there would also have to be something else with that, and that's my most desired outside result, is Tay beating Charles. There isn't really any other one result that I care about. It's more of a series of results, but that one, if Charles beats Dina, Dina loses the last week, and Tay beats Charles the last week, and I win out, I'll be the 1 seed.
Right.
So yeah, that's pretty much the whole season.
Yeah.
But speaking of Charles, we've got Charles, who is also at 4-3, and he's at +2. So win this week, and he locks postseason. 2 wins, he locks the top 3, same as me. He can make wild card with 2 close losses. Basically, his math is exactly the same as my math. He's got an outside shot at the 1 seed if Dina loses out. But his most desired outside result is much more simple. He wants Raz to beat me, because no matter what happens this week, if Raz beats me, he can at least maintain parity with me in the record column. He has the head-to-head win and a bit of a differential advantage. So that's his most desired outside result. The math is pretty simple for him, though. But what do you think of his season?
Yeah, he's had a super good season so far. Very solid and consistent performance. Just in general, I think Charles outside of our number 1 seed, I think has had the most consistent season in terms of just overall performance. I think his core mons have been used really, really well, particularly the Weavile and Driftblim. He's been using those in ways that I really haven't seen those mons get used to an extent. And he's gotten some really cool momentum going with those 2 mons in particular. I also really want to compliment, more so on the prep end of things, is that he does a nice job addressing each matchup. Charles's team actually does have a few slight, there are ways that I think that most people are going to go into Charles prepping for his team. Things like where you're attacking your fire move, what you're doing with this, how are you handling the Weavile Tarak. There's very specific things that Charles' team does, and he just preps around the opponent's counter preps so well, consistently. I haven't seen a game where Charles, in the builder, didn't do the thing that gives his opponent the most trouble, which I think is a real testament. That's really, really challenging to do. So, good job to him. I am very interested to see how the rest of his season plays out. I think he's a strong contender. And Weavile, I just mentioned I like his use of Weavile. It's been very, very cool.
That's fair. And then moving on to the last person is Dina. She's locked top 3, and if she either wins one of her next 2 games or Charles and I both get a loss over the next couple weeks, she'll lock the 1 seed. So pretty consistent, 6-1 plus 15. Her most desired outside result is Raz beating me, because if she beats Charles and Raz beats me, she locks the 1 seed.
Easy. Yeah.
Easy enough math. Go for it.
Yeah, no, the consistency of play, just in general, has been top of the line pretty much all season. I think her willingness to swap between her modes has also been really stellar. Her team is just so multifaceted in what it can do, and it's so hard to look at the lead slot and know exactly what's going to happen on a given turn, which I think is pretty fantastic. I really liked her Raichu A usage in tandem with the team. I make this note mostly as the other coach with a Raichu right now. Now, my Raichu obviously functions differently than hers. Hers is offensive and has different kinds of stuff. But Raichu A is a surprisingly... it's difficult week to week to prep with, just because of the fact that it gets so much. And I constantly see the Raichu doing absolutely as much work as it needs to do. And the set variety has been very good with it. I think her prep has just been great consistently across the board. I don't, similar to Charles, I feel like she is frequently putting her opponents in a worst case scenario with her counter prepping. I think has been very good. So that's just kind of my notes for Dina. Obviously top seed. She's having a great season. Congrats on locking at least the top 3. And I'm excited to see how your last couple games play out.
Yeah, absolutely. But that will wrap it up for this week. A pretty quick and simple video just talking about how people can make playoffs or wild card and just quick notes on their season as well. So, do you have any closing thoughts before we finish up, Ryan?
Not particularly. I think that this is still very much anyone's game. I feel like the bottom. I mean, honestly, Johnny to Jess, I think is still pretty cutthroat in terms of trying to get that wild card slot. I think that that's still very open for anybody, and I think even at the top there is still quite a bit that needs to happen for you three to kind of maintain your momentum going into this end of season. So, yeah.
All right, that sounds good. Well, we will see you guys next week. Bye.